Have you or someone you know ever had a bad experience with a moving company? Or maybe you've heard about it in the news, seen it on TV, or read about it online. Chances are you have. Bad experiences are so common in the moving industry that almost everybody can relate. So today we're going to talk about a few things that you can look out for when dealing with a moving company, some of the bad practices that have become the normal in the moving industry, and what you can do to safeguard yourself against some of the things that have become the norm in the moving industry that makes it such a sketchy industry. First and foremost, why is it that everybody seems to know how bad the moving industry is, but no one seems to know what to do about it, or the fact that it just keeps happening? You would think that somebody would rein this in. And I have a pretty good explanation that I think is the reason that moving companies across the industry get away with being so crappy. So if you think about it, moving day is very stressful. People just want to get it done and over with. You're uprooting your life. It might be for a positive change, it might be for a negative change. No matter what it is for, it is still a very major life change that people are going through. So people have a tendency just to want to get it done and over with. And for this reason, there's not a lot of pre-planning when it goes into the logistics of how it's going to be done. And moving itself is so hard to do by yourself that very few people want to do it by themselves, even though the moving industry itself has high expensive rates. It can cost you a lot to hire a moving company to come in and do the work for you. I think, and I know from experience, that people just don't do enough planning into how and when and who they're going to hire to do their moving for them. They go online, they read a couple reviews, usually the first 3 to 5 reviews, to get an idea of who they're going to be hiring, and then they go with that company, and then they just hope that everything will work out. It seems kind of crazy to think about it because you're hiring somebody to come in your house and into your life and put their hands on your life belongings and transport them in a truck that you don't really get to be involved in the process, and anything goes. So it's crazy to think that people don't put a lot of thought into this, but I do know this. With over 5 years of experience in the moving industry and seeing every single customer behave and act the same way, I understand that I can look back and say that it's not just a few people that are making bad decisions. This is something that is common because everybody goes through it the same way. It is common. So don't feel bad if it's ever happened to you because everybody does it. It happens across the board. One of the things you have to know about moving companies is that they have somebody in the office that is dedicated to customer service. What that usually means is fighting with the customers after they've been upset by the way that they do their business, the way they run their business. This includes review bombing and reviewing. If you give most companies a bad review, you will have someone call you repeatedly, harassing you to change that review. This can actually include them giving your business or even the place you just work at bad reviews and harassing them until you change the review. So you have to understand that not every good review, try to read between the lines when you're reading reviews. Even the good reviews, if you take a second to read between the lines, you can see that it was almost a forced review. So read more than the first 5 reviews. And I would suggest going through some of the reviews and finding the bad ones that are still there, and maybe leaving a comment so you can build some type of rapport with that person and get a better idea of what you're walking into with this moving company and why you shouldn't use them. I'm sure there are people that will be glad to tell you you should stay clear of this company and why. Read your contract. And over 5 years of experience as a mover, I've only seen one person read their contract and they didn't even read it. They just pretended like they read it so they could see my reaction. The thing was, I'm just the mover. I don't care if they signed a contract or not. So they didn't get the reaction out of me that they were hoping to get. They could have just asked me and I would have told them. People don't read their contract. Hundreds of people that I've moved and did deliveries for over the years, and only one person sort of acted like they were going to read their contract, but really didn't. That means 0 people. Of all the people I've moved, did deliveries for, or just did jobs for, nobody, 100% of the people Nobody read their contract, so they didn't really know what they were getting themselves into. What you need to understand about that contract, most moving companies out there, when you sign that contract, there's a clause in there that says your stuff now belongs to them. Once they take your stuff out of your house and put it on their truck, it now belongs to them until you pay the bill. And here's the kicker. You're going to pay the bill before they unload their truck. When you get to your new address or the new place or storage unit or wherever you're taking your stuff, most moving companies are going to collect before they open their truck to start unloading your stuff. It is common practice. This means, one, if you're planning on ripping off the moving company, it's not going to go the way you thought. But it also means if they're ripping you off, it's not going to go the way you thought. They're going to hold your stuff hostage. And calling the police will do you no good. So please, people, read your contract, not just in a moving industry, especially in a moving industry, but always read what you're signing. So another major issue in the moving industry is the movers themselves. Now, yes, there's common things that happen that, people stealing stuff that you might be worried about, but what you might not be thinking about that is actually more prevalent in the moving industry and you need to be more concerned with is drugs and alcohol. Let's make it an even number and say if I worked with 100 different movers in my lifetime, 90 of them were either drug addicts or alcoholics, or worse, both. There is no excuse for drug use or alcoholism, especially in a professional setting. But I believe the reason that this happens is for two reasons. One, the job is very hard to do. Not everybody can do it. The moving industry itself, it draws in people that just need a paycheck. Or the moving companies aren't doing good screening, so they're just hiring someone that needs a job. And 9 times out of 10, that person is doing this hard job because they just need a paycheck to get their next fix or get their beer at the end of the day. Now, the other side and the other reason for drugs and alcohol in the moving industry is because that the job is so hard that some people might feel that they need drugs and alcohol to do the job or after doing the job because their body hurts or whatever. The fact is that this is not true. I'm 40 years old and I did it and I took pride in my work. I didn't need drugs and alcohol to do it. So it's not the case. It's just, I guess, the society that we live in now that people use this excuse to do things and maintain their lifestyle. Those are the main things you want to consider when dealing with a moving company. So now I'm going to go over some solutions that you can consider to help safeguard yourself and maybe make it a better experience for you when hiring a moving company to help you deal with this major life change. Pre-planning will go a long way. Pre-planning applies to everything in life, but to such a vital process as hiring complete and total strangers to come in your house and touch your personal possessions, pre-planning is a must. Figure out who it is you're hiring. Talk to the people. Know the process. Know how it's going to go down. Know what your rates are. I'm going to cover these individually, but just know the overall process of how it's going to go. Speak to your mover. Speak to the owner if you can. Go to the office of the company if you can. See who you're dealing with. Trust me, a lot of the bad moving companies that I work for, all you got to do is see them in person to know they're not going to care about you and your possessions. Read more than a couple reviews. Read a dozen reviews. Read 2 dozen reviews. Get a bigger picture of who you're dealing with when you're hiring a moving company. If you see some bad reviews, leave a comment and see if you can get a picture of what you might be getting yourself into by hiring this moving company. Remember, moving companies have a practice of fixing their reviews and review bombing other companies just to get their reviews fixed. So just because they have a bunch of good reviews on Google doesn't mean they're a good moving company. There are ways around that, and keep that in mind. Read your contract. If you go through the hiring process and now you have a scheduled move with a company, when they show up and hand you that contract, take a few minutes to read it. If you see something you don't like, address that. Not with the movers, they're just the hired peons. They're not going to be able to do anything for you. Call and speak to the manager or the owner if you can. The contract should be talked about in part of the pre-planning process. Find out if you pay your bill before or after they unload the truck. You want to be in control of that. If the movers do something, you have every right to withhold payment until they make it right. But if they keep your stuff on the truck until you pay, and you've signed a contract saying that your stuff belongs to them until you pay, you're screwed. There's nothing you can do. And no, calling the cops will not work. The police cannot do anything for you if it's in your contract. So read that contract. please, people, read your contract and everything in life, not just what we're talking about here in this video. Again, know the overall process, how it's going to play out. Know the different fees that you could be charged. Know your rate per hour. If they're going to add a stairs fee, a long carry fee, which is when, you know, you're in a condo or an apartment and it's a long walk from where they're parked to your door. A lot of companies will charge you for that long walk. Get a step-by-step picture of what the process will be before you hire a company. And like I said, to get a bigger picture of what your final cost will be, figure out the rates and the fees that are going to be applied to your move. Talk to the owner and see if, say, you think it's going to be $500. Well, can I get that in writing? See if you can get them to commit in writing that this will be your final bill. A lot of moving companies won't do that because they could be losing money, but if you can get them to do it, absolutely, by all means, do that. Pay attention to your movers. If you have 2 movers show up, if you have 3 movers on your job, if you have 4 movers on your job, greet each of them individually. You know, see if you can smell alcohol or drugs on them. Now, I do want to point out that smoking marijuana is pretty prevalent and across the moving industry, and a lot of movers, in my opinion, are better movers when they're calm and relaxed and they're taking their time and paying attention, but that might not be something that you want to permit in your household. So just be conscious of what you're dealing with when you hire a mover. Drugs are a big problem with movers. Are they going in the bathroom every 20 minutes? Something's not right. Pay attention to what your movers are doing. I'm not saying to follow them everywhere they go, because a lot of movers don't work so good under that type of pressure, but that doesn't mean you can't pay attention to what they're doing. Again, greet each individual mover as they enter your home at the beginning of the job. And finally, and this one's important, offer to be a good customer, a repeat customer. If they give you good service, that you're going to be back to take advantage of their service in the future. You will be a repeat customer. As a side note, if you are a tipper, which in the service industry you should be a tipper, but especially when someone's carrying your heavy dresser up a flight of stairs, you should tip your movers. If you plan on tipping your movers if they do a good job, it will pay off almost 100% of the time to let them know up front that you will be tipping them if they do a good job. Now, of course, there are going to be some instances where it's not a good idea to tell your movers you're going to be tipping them if they do a good job at the end of the job. However, just use your own discretion. You can always take back an offer of a tip if you need to. But in my experience, anytime a person told me they were going to tip if I did a good job, I did a good job. I made sure I did a good job because I knew I was going to get a tip if I did well. So that sums up everything I wanted to go over today. Now, of course, this has been somewhat of a brush through on some main topics that you want to consider when hiring a moving company. So if you have any questions, comments, or other concerns you would like me to address, leave a comment below. I'll definitely get back to you. And of course, if you found value in my video, hit the like button and subscribe to my channel to show me some support. I appreciate all of my viewership, and I do hope to see you again soon.